did keep thinking she's going to turn up. It can't be true, she's going to turn up.
Her phone was off and no one could get hold of her.
They all said that they haven't seen her, so we knew that something bad has happened.
I remember her screaming, I need to go, I need to go.
There's been reports of burning rubbish in his garden, funny smell coming from the burning.
At that point, the police had no choice but to take it seriously.
No words at a time, I just felt so numb.
Hairs on my arms and the back of my neck stood up because I just thought this woman has been murdered.
Blackheath, nestled in southeast London, just a stone's throw from the hustle and bustle of the capital, but a world away with its leafy common and traditional charm.
Blackheath is a very green area with a lovely village in the middle, which gives it a real community feel. It's a village within London. Everyone knows each other. You say hello to your neighbours in the morning. It's got a good sense of community.
At the heart of that close-knit community is mum of four, Fiona Home.
I lived with my mum till I was 6, but living with my mum was the best thing ever. She always used to make jokes about silly little situations, and it was always adventurous.
Everyone knew Fiona. We used to go shopping, and I'd say to her before we left, right, don't talk to anyone because we're in a rush. I'd catch her talking to people, she'd be like, quick, my sister's coming, I've got to go. She said, I'm not allowed to talk to you.
Everyone was her friend, literally. Like, she was so kind-hearted, such a lovely character, just a beautiful soul. She really was.
So when Fiona hasn't been seen for a few days, there's concern among the community.
On the 29th of June, I got a call from a social worker saying that they was a bit worried about Fiona, that she was trying to get hold of Fiona but couldn't.
We started calling her phone and her phone just went straight to voicemail. Then I went to my mum's house because I had the key and we went in, and when we went in, it was so cold, like there was no one living there.
There was no electric, and my sister always made sure she had electric. The fridge was mouldy, so it didn't look like she'd been there for a while.
I remember I was actually sitting here in the front room. Elise phoned me and said that she'd gone missing. We all tried to phone her, kept leaving her messages, but the phone was off. Her phone was off. And no one could get hold of her.
Everybody in Lewisham always sees my mum when it's payday because my mum loves the markets, and they didn't see her.
We was all really, really worried. We was all, you know, come on, where are you, Fee? You're going to pop up somewhere, because, you know, that was her character, you know. But the more we was looking, the more, you know, we was coming to dead ends.
Everyone said the same thing, we haven't seen her for a week or two, so we knew that something bad has happened.
Having searched her usual haunts, Fiona's family report her missing.
There are a lot of factors that would make someone a high-risk missing person, and these aren't necessarily the same factors in every case.
It wasn't out of character for her to go missing or her phone to be off if she's not charged it. But for this length of time and this period of time, that was very out of character.
Obviously, an adult person is allowed to go off and do what they want. If they want not to be found, then that is their right, and there may be many reasons for that.
Concerned for her missing mum, Fiona's daughter Savannah turned detective.
Me and my family and friends were out there doing all the searches. I was doing Facebook posts. I even made a group on Facebook.
I remember becoming aware of a appeal has been posted on Facebook with Fiona's image, just appealing for any information to help find her.
The days that my mum got paid, all of our friends and family, we all split up. One person was in Blackheath, one person was in Catford, one person was in Lee Green, and one person was in Lewisham, at the cash points that my mum usually goes to. There was no sign of her whatsoever, so that is when we really knew that something was up, because as soon as it was payday, my mum would get so excited and she'd be like, right, I need gas, electric, and I need a big bottle of Coke.
So all of these people that knew her, she just vanished, so nobody knew where she was.
Police start to look into Fiona's last known movements.
Fiona had quite a regular routine of how she would behave and what she would do, so it was fairly easy to look for points that we could, you know, find her on CCTV or look for bits in her routine that we knew she would do. Fiona's last known movements were on the 20th of June 2023. We know that Fiona went to a shop in Verdant Lane or near Verdant Lane in Catford, and she'd bought some items during the day, and we had CCTV of her in that shop, and we'd seen that there were sort of financial inquiries to back this up.
Fiona's bank card hadn't been used. The last time it was used was on the 20th. And my sister, she used to just buy stupid things from the shop. She'd always be tapping her card for rubbish. So for Fiona not to use her card, something's definitely wrong.
With Fiona now known to have been missing for nearly 2 weeks, police take a closer look at her life.
We obviously look at people that are in that person's life, so we would see who they have associations with, ex-partners, family members.
And this includes Fiona's ex-partner, known to everyone as Elvis.
My mum and dad's, yeah, they're like Bonnie and Clyde, to be honest with you. They have their moments and then they're back together. Throughout my 28 years, they've been on and off, but they were like best friends as well. So they would always, even if they had new partners, they would still meet up and just go shopping or come and see me because of my daughter. So it was a nice relationship that they had.
The police asked me when I spoke to Fiona, when I saw Fiona last, yeah, everything. I met Fiona on a bus around 1993 when I just moved into Lewisham, and we had a chat on a bus, and we had an exchange and phone number, and she was lovely, yeah, smiley and happy person. And after that, very inseparable.
When Fiona was in her 30s, she was diagnosed with autism and ADHD.
I always worried about Fiona. She saw the good in everyone, and she's got a mind of a 15-year-old. I feel like she saw the world through, like, a child's eyes.
She did trust everyone. So, for example, she would give homeless people money for food, or she would go and get them food, or if somebody needed my mum's last pound, my mum would give it because my mum had such a big heart. Money didn't mean nothing to my mum, so she would just give it out like it was water.
Fiona, she used to take in anyone, really. There was this man, he was a homeless man, he used to be outside the train station. Fiona used to make him egg sandwiches every morning. And then there was another homeless man. She used to see him, make sure he was all right now, but she gave him a key to her house so he could go and have a bath and freshen up. But we did say to Fiona, like, you can't just take strangers in. Like, you have to be careful.
With Fiona identified as a vulnerable person and with no sign of her in 3 weeks, the missing person investigation changes focus.
I requested from my boss that we, the homicide team, take on looking for Fiona.
The police came to my mum's house and they took my mum's toothbrush and hairbrush for DNA, and then I got asked to hand over the key and then I had to leave the property, and then they turned it into a crime scene.
I changed the status of that investigation from a missing person investigation to a murder investigation.
The search for missing mum of 4, Fiona Home from Blackheath Village, has ramped up a gear.
We went and checked Fiona's flat, we checked where she was staying with her friend. We went everywhere, we rung everyone, rung the hospitals, rung the mental hospital, we done everything. We put appeals out on Facebook as well to see if anyone had seen her, but no. Everyone said they saw her, the last time they saw her was around 2 weeks ago.
She did have vulnerabilities, but those vulnerabilities didn't define her as a person, and she was, she coped very well. And she was very well loved by her family and very missed by her family. So it was really, odd to them and obviously heightened the risk factors to us that she hadn't been in contact with any of her family.
At that point, the police have no choice but to take it seriously. The investigation is moved from the missing person investigation unit to the murder team.
Family and friends reveal that while Fiona was normally the life and soul of the party, she had become more withdrawn over the past few weeks.
I remember the last time I spoke to my mum, she was going through stuff but didn't want to talk about it. Her mental health wasn't right, so she started to drink a lot heavier than what she has ever done in her life. So we knew that something wasn't right. She always would just tell us anything, even if it was something inappropriate, she would tell us, but she didn't say anything.
She started to kind of distance herself, and my sister didn't care what she looked like, she didn't care what she wore, but she started saying to me, "Oh, do you think I'm fat?" And then asking me to do her makeup, like, a certain way and stuff. But at the time, I didn't really think anything of it.
She said she had a new boyfriend, Carl Cooper.
Well, I didn't really know much about Carl. I spoke to him once on the phone, like when she first met him. It was on New Year's Eve, and she said she was going to see her friend. And I was just saying to him, "You better look after my sister."
He's a Jamaican-born man. He came over to the UK at the end of the 1990s and lived in the Brixton and Catford areas for most of that time. We know he worked as a handyman plumber and would do sort of odd jobs for, cash-in-hand jobs around the local area and working with other builders. He would dress in quite trendy clothes, and you would look at him and think, actually, he maybe is a much younger man than sort of in his mid to late 60s.
Fiona was very closed off when it came to Carl. Now, Fiona, she would tell you everyone's life story, her own life story, but when it comes to him, she didn't really say too much. And because it was such a short period of time, I didn't think it was that serious. She was only with him for 5 months.
Elise sort of went down there just to see if he'd seen her sister, and he said, "No, I haven't seen her."
I said, "I'm looking for my sister," and he said he hasn't seen her for 2 weeks. He started getting upset, saying that he hopes nothing's happened to her because she talks to everyone and she's so kind.
But days later, Fiona's family decide they needed to pay Carl another visit after speaking with her friend.
She said that, "I hope that she's not with Carl because Carl's a bad person." Later on that day, we met up, me and Elise and my partner, and we did go down to Carl Cooper's house, and we saw the painted windows, and we thought it was so strange.
Once we went to the house and realised that he painted the windows, that's when the panic started to drop in. Because I've been there before and I've dropped my sister off there and I've picked her up and his windows wasn't painted.
We decided to knock on the door. No one was answering the door, and we started knocking on his front window. because he's got like long Victorian windows, and we started knocking it and there was just no answer.
We was banging on the windows, banging on the doors, and then Savannah's partner scratched off a bit of paint on the window, and I looked through and I saw him standing there.
A neighbour came downstairs, and when the neighbour came downstairs, she was just like, leave that old man alone. Why are you here? You need to leave this old man alone. And I just said to her, look, my mum's vulnerable, and this was the last place that she may have been. So if you do have any details, could you let us know?
By now, more of Fiona's friends and family have joined the search.
My uncle Mitchell, he does live in Bradford, and he came down to help us search for my mum. He went to Carl Cooper's house before he left. He said, let me just have one more look.
He's gone round now and she's rung me and he said, there's a man outside with a van buying stuff from Carl.
Van's about to, it was on the drive, it was about to drive off. I've stopped the van to say, like, what's going on? Can we have a look in the van to see if there's any of Fiona's belongings in there? And then when he opened the van door, we saw one of Fiona's jackets in there.
When I picked my sister's jacket up, I could smell her, and I was actually physically sick on the side of the road. Like, I knew then something bad's happened, because he said how much he loved my sister. Now, if you love someone and they've gone missing, why would you sell their clothes?
You can imagine at that point, it's incredibly suspicious. Carl Cooper says it had nothing to do with Fiona Holmes' disappearance, and yet here they find him selling her stuff, trying to get rid of it.
I was like, come out here. He's like, no, 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 kept running inside, closing the door.
So I knew, yeah, he's done something awful to her. I think Carl called the police on us.
The police arrived, they went inside, spoke to him, came back out, spoke to us, said that nothing to suggest that she was here and things happened.
At the same time, DCI Kate Blackburn has been reviewing the information of Fiona's disappearance and her relationship.
I saw the name Carl Cooper and I sat there and, you know, the hairs on my arms and the back of my neck stood up because I just thought, oh, this is Cooper. And then I thought, this woman has been murdered. I thought she's dead at that point.
And then they went back in, and then after that they arrested him.
When they first told us that Carl's been arrested on suspicion of murder, it just, everything just, my whole body sunk. And I did keep thinking she's going to turn up. It can't be true, she's going to turn up.
My head was all over the place, to be honest. It was like a hot fuzz in my head. Like, I couldn't think, why would he actually want to hurt my mum?
I knew Carl Cooper from an investigation that we'd had since February 2022 when Naomi Hunt.
Naomi Hunt was a 41-year-old lady who lived in Woolwich. On the 14th of February 2022, a neighbour saw that Naomi's door was slightly ajar and went inside and saw her body there. The police were called to her flat and they found her lying on the sofa, which was covered in blood.
Naomi had clearly been stabbed and it was obvious that this was a suspicious death that needed to be investigated.
I found out my Auntie Naomi got murdered. My grandma rang me and she told me she's gone. She's gone. And I said, what do you mean? And then she told me that she got found in a flat, stabbed to death.
We believe that Naomi had been in her flat for probably 4 days. We believe she was murdered on the 10th of February 2022.
I was heartbroken, I didn't believe it. I rang her like 120 times because we was always on the phone. She was an amazing, loving, beautiful human being. She had a massive heart and she loved her family. She loved the music and she loved peace. And she was very, very clever, very, very clever.
Police rule Naomi's flat a crime scene, but are immediately faced with a problem.
We did have difficulties with Naomi's investigation because she hadn't been found for several days after we believed she had died, and she died in an insecure flat, so we weren't able to say who had been in that flat in the interim period.
But
when we looked at Naomi's phone records, we could see that she'd been in contact with Carl Cooper, and we could see the activity on her phone ceased around the 10th of February, so we knew that that was a significant time point.
Mobile devices contain a huge amount of information that relates to the location of the device at a particular time. Now, this is really because every smartphone contains something called a GPS receiver, which really pinpoints the precise location of the phone at any point in time. So reviewing all this location data on Cooper's phone, police are able to place him in the area of Naomi's flat at the key times on February 9th and February 10th, and they're then able to look at CCTV from the local area and corroborate that he was in that area at that time.
So once we'd identified that Cooper was in a relationship with Naomi and had been one of the last people to be in contact with her, he was arrested and interviewed. And he said, yes, I am seeing Naomi. I had been to her flat, but I left her in the early hours of that morning and went home. And when I left her, she was safe and well, sort of as normal.
Carl is released on bail, while police continue their investigations.
My grandma didn't like him. She didn't like him. She said he was a bad energy. She said he likes drinking a lot, he's violent. And she said that, well, she named him as my Auntie Naomi's friends. They were friends, but he wanted a bit more.
In November 2020, Naomi told police that she believed Carl Cooper was obsessed with her. She told them that she told Carl that she just wanted to be friends, and he got angry at that.
During our investigation, we identified that there had been a number of occasions that Naomi had phoned the police about Carl Cooper. These were incidents where he'd gone around her house and was banging on her door and wouldn't leave the address. And she described him in many different ways. She'd sort of described him as a partner or as a friend and just said, you know, this person won't leave. But she had told the officers that she was frightened of him.
I've heard some stories about this guy, and apparently he was, like, you know, harassing her and stalking her way before. And I remember my auntie ringing me and saying that, you know, there's a guy next to her, behind her, following her. She wants to be left alone. I remember her screaming, I need to go, I need to go.
Despite Naomi's reports to the police about Carl, and the fact they can prove he was one of the last to have seen her, detectives have no option but to release Carl without charge.
We didn't have, you know, significant CCTV evidence. There was no direct forensic evidence that he'd been involved. There were a lot of other inquiries that we need to undertake at that time, and there wasn't sufficient evidence to take the case to the Crown Prosecution Service. So he was bailed, and he remained on bail for the period of about a year. Following that, he was re-interviewed at the police station in relation to some blood spots that had been found on one of his jackets that belonged to Naomi, and then he was released under investigation whilst we built a case against him.
Stage, Carl had met Fiona, who was living a few miles away from him in Hither Green.
He was very quiet, very nice, very polite, kept himself to self, didn't speak a lot, didn't say a word a lot, just by himself. You know, some people like to keep to themselves, they don't want to open up.
Fiona would visit Cooper at his address, they would spend time together, but I wouldn't think that they would go out on dates or they would, you know, go to the cinema or things like that. It was very much, you know, Fiona would visit Cooper and then she would go back to her flat.
But within a few months, Fiona and Carl's relationship turned sour.
In April 2023, Fiona called the police to Broadfield Road to Cooper's home address to say that she had been assaulted by Cooper that evening. He'd raised a crowbar towards her and threatened her. She was clearly upset, she was clearly vulnerable, but she didn't want to pursue any allegation at that point. But she also mentioned that several weeks earlier he'd stabbed her with a screwdriver in her arm when she'd been at her address in Blackheath.
Fiona wanted to see me, yeah. She called me, I went to her house. She opened the door, I went in and I found a man that she introduced as just a friend. And the man came out and then would start to shout and yell and start getting aggressive. He turned around, picked up an object from his pocket, and right in front of me, he stabbed Fiona. Maybe somewhere around the hand and the abdomen, around her side. I was shocked. I moved quickly to defend Fiona. He lodged out his hand, tried to stab me. I kicked a weapon off his hands, yeah, and he ran quickly off the house. The weapon hit the roof and touched the ground, and then we picked it and we found that it was a screwdriver.
I think I saw her about a week later. I said to her, show me your marks, and she showed me. She had like puncture marks there. So it wasn't very deep, but he stabbed her still. I said to her, so why are you going around with him? She was like, oh, you know what it's like, we was drunk. And the thing is, I always thought Fiona could look after herself, because she could.
Following the April incident and the reports that Cooper had previously stabbed Fiona with a screwdriver, Carl Cooper was arrested and interviewed about those matters. Unfortunately, Fiona didn't want to support prosecution, and so no further action was taken against him at that time.
Is it Carl?
Yes.
Carl, you're under arrest, okay, for the murder of Fiona. Oh, you didn't have to say anything?
After Fiona's disappearance and 17 months after Naomi's murder, police arrest Carl Cooper, having found him trying to sell Fiona.
Mr. Cooper, did you have any knowledge or involvement in Fiona Hunn's death? Did you kill Fiona Hunn?
No comment.
With Carl now in custody, his house is turned into a crime scene.
Cooper's address was quite a strange address because it was a ground floor flat with a basement and a garden, but it was in complete disarray across the whole address, so it didn't have any functioning power. A couple of the rooms were just absolutely full of junk. The living room was full of junk, but what was quite striking was that the windows had been painted white, so you couldn't see in.
One day, he started painting his windows blue colour, then he painted white colour. Then we was thinking, my wife saying, what is he doing? Why is he doing? I said, he may be decorating indoors.
He had an L-shaped sofa, and it was quite a massive one, to be honest with you. And by the time the police have got there was only 2 seats.
The curtains had been cut, the sofa had been removed, so 2/3 of this sort of modular corner sofa had been removed, and the wallpaper had been ripped from the walls from most of the room, so it was significantly different.
There's been reports of Carl burning rubbish in his garden, funny smell coming from the burning.
One night we heard the women screaming in there. Next day he was burning something out there. It was horrible smell. And I looked over the wall and he was burning. I told him and he ignored me. So I don't know what he was burning. It was this horrible, horrible smell.
The areas of fire were examined by a fire scientist because we needed to know what materials had been burnt, whether it was paper or fabric, or if indeed it could be human remains. And we discovered that there were no human remains within those fires.
With forensic examinations continuing in Cooper's home, but time running out to hold him in custody, police make a decision.
We didn't have any forensic evidence at that point, and it was a wholly circumstantial case. And we had to present the relationships between Cooper and Naomi and Cooper and Fiona, and the out-of-character nature of Fiona's disappearance, and then also the circumstances surrounding Naomi's death. We took the case to the Crown Prosecution Service, who authorised charges for both murders, and Cooper was charged on the 13th of July.
Carl Cooper was charged with Fiona's murder on the 13th of July, 2023. But at this point, Fiona's family were given the bombshell news that Carl Cooper was not just being charged with Fiona's murder, he was also being charged with the murder of Naomi Hunt.
The police came to my house and they told me that he's killed another woman called Naomi Hunt, literally the year before, in February. And we're sorry, but we do reckon that he has murdered your mum.
When we found out Carl'd already been arrested for murdering Naomi, I can't believe that he was just out walking the streets.
Cooper is a dominant man, an overbearing man. He's also a man who's able to identify vulnerabilities in women quite quickly. This is a man who is not interested in a reciprocal romantic relationship. He wants a woman that he can dominate. He wants a woman that is subservient to him and that becomes his possession, an extension of his property.
With Cooper now in custody awaiting trial for both murders, police need to build their case.
I'll just show you those two photos first, please. Mr. Cooper, are these the items that you sold to the man who with us from Deptford Market?
No problem.
These are the items, obviously, that have been picked out by the family that they believe belonging to Fiona.
We always say that the hardest part is then to build the case and get the case to court because we have quite short time frames. And we're constantly working on that investigation. We're still speaking to witnesses, we're still undertaking phone inquiries, CCTV inquiries, because we have to prove to the court and the jury that Fiona is dead, not that, you know, we just think she's dead. And alongside that, we're still building the case around Naomi's murder. So the actual first tangible bit of evidence we had came really close to the trial, which is quite surprising. So we had examined Cooper's flat for weeks. We'd had scientists looking in the living room predominantly because we decided that the living room was a key area within that property. And it was several weeks before trial, so it was very close to trial, that we had the forensic result that there was some of Fiona's blood within that living room.
When they done a thorough search, they found my sister's blood on his walls.
At that point, I thought, OK, I need to come to terms with something really bad has happened to my mum, and I do need to accept it now because her blood is in quite a few places in his house. Even though it wasn't enough to say that she actually did get murdered in the house, but they do reckon that he did stab her in his front room, and that's why there is blood splatters.
When we get to trial, there is very much a sense of we sort of hand the case over to the prosecutor, and then it's in their hands, because we've done all the work, we've done all the groundwork, we've got all the evidence. It's very much that feeling of you're kind of not in control anymore. It's with the jury then, it's with the jury to decide.
Kyle Cooper looked very relaxed. He was sitting with one leg over the other, and he spent much of the trial with an eyebrow slightly raised, kind of looking distastefully at what was happening in front of him.
So the trial was presented in a chronological way, so all the evidence was heard for Naomi's murder, and then all of the evidence was heard for Fiona's murder.
The most compelling evidence against Kyle Cooper was the mobile phone and CCTV evidence. The police put him there on that night that Naomi died.
The jury was also told about the numerous calls Naomi had made to police complaining about Cooper.
There was a stunned silence in the press box. Lightning had struck twice in the same place, and it all pointed at one man, Kyle Cooper.
Having laid out the similarities between Naomi and Fiona, complaints about Cooper's violent behaviour, and their blood found on his belongings, the prosecution presents its key piece of evidence.
The police focused their activity on the living room in the house. This is where they believe there to have been a lot of activity and potentially the crime scene. So through digital forensics analysis, we identify two key photographs, both in the same location, taken of the living room, but at different points in time. One predating what we believe to be the murder, and one after.
It's so compelling because you can see the transition of the property, and you can see the transition of that room from what it used to look like to what Kyle Cooper turned it into following Fiona's murder. You can see that the sofa is removed, you can see that the curtains are cut, the windows are painted, areas of the wallpaper have been ripped from the walls, and you can see things like the TV are no longer there, the rug in the living room is no longer there, the coffee table's no longer there. So it's a wholesale change to that room.
Kyle Cooper paid someone to come and take the sofa and take it to a local dump where it could be disposed of.
There were videos of him and his friend moving his sofa.
We tracked the sofa to a waste disposal site locally, so we know that he'd asked somebody to come and remove the modular bits of the sofa for him, and that had been taken to a waste disposal site and disposed of, and the remnants of that we tracked to Sweden.
I asked the police, do you think that my mum's body could have been put in the sofa? And they said no, there was no indication that there was blood on it.
With the prosecution having presented its case, it's Cooper's turn to take the stand.
Cooper was very animated when he gave evidence. He was very excitable about some parts of his evidence. He was quite adamant that he'd had nothing to do with either of the women's deaths, and that he was innocent.
One of the most shocking moments in the trial was when Kyle Cooper decided to give evidence. I'm not sure why his defence really let him take the stand, because he just dug a hole and dug a hole. At one point, he even suggested that Hamas might have kidnapped Fiona.
The defence painted him as a frail old man who can't do anything. He can't read, he can't write, and the stories he was coming out with just was terrible. It was horrible.
To be honest with you, you could see that he was panicking on the stand. When he was giving his story, he kept stopping, and then he kept drinking his water, and he kept fidgeting, he kept moving the microphone. Then he was saying to the jury, please, jury, you're messing with my life. The judge gave him so many warnings because he kept going off of topic very quickly.
I couldn't pinpoint any one bit of evidence that was the standout bit of evidence that would have helped convince the jury of Cooper's guilt. I think, again, it's looking at the whole picture. It's looking at the cases side by side and looking at the coincidences between them and all of the circumstances surrounding the death of both women.
Cooper has a distinct profile that he predates on. So we see with these two women, they're both of a similar age, both of a similar racial demographic, and they both have vulnerabilities. And that is the element that will have attracted Cooper. So Cooper is actively looking for women that he can manipulate, that he can coerce, that he can exploit. So targeting women who have these vulnerabilities, such as these two young women, this speaks to a very distinct victim profile that Cooper has.
After 3 days of deliberating, the jury returns its verdict.
It was horrible just sitting, waiting, and then when they did call us back, I thought they was just going to call us to say we could go home. And our family liaison officer said, we've got a verdict, and everything went blank to me. I couldn't hear it.
I just remember seeing a lady in the jury. She stood up and she said that the judge asked, do you find him guilty of Naomi Hunt's murder? And she said guilty. And then she said the same for my mum.
I've never had an experience like that, and it's so weird because we was happy but so sad. And then I had to ring my mum and tell her, yeah, that, like, we was happy but we weren't.
I was so happy. I was crying and my heart was beating fast because I was thinking, okay, I've got justice for my mum, but it's just not enough just yet. I need her body so I can lay her to rest, and then that will be it.
On the 2nd of July, Carl Cooper is jailed for 35 years for both murders.
I still feel like my auntie's with me. I could have a happy day and speak to her and say, morning, Auntie Naomi. I don't get upset about it. I laugh, I smile, and I love, because I just love her so much. She's amazing.
I think this case will always remain with me as a senior investigating officer. The fact that we haven't found Fiona, you know, weighs heavy on me, and the investigation is still ongoing, and, you know, we're committed to doing all we can to find Fiona, to bring her back to her family.
Although Carl Cooper's been sentenced and we have justice for Fiona, we don't actually have justice for her because, you know, we don't have a special place to go to sit, to lay flowers, to talk. We don't have that.
Words can't describe how much I miss her. I just miss everything about her. And it just kills me that I can't even hear her voice, so I just give her a hug.
I had the best sister I could ask for. I miss her.
I really do hope that we do find you so we can give you the send-off you deserve, because this is not fair. You don't deserve this.